There are three natures of value. Now, this is used to teach this. There's unchanging value. The only unchanging value is unchanging the nature, the unchanging nature, the positive, the nature of positive that doesn't change. The unchanging nature of positive overall is one nature of value. Physical value is another nature of value. Metaphysical nature is another nature of value. Those are the three natures of value. Allah is unchanging positive. Even if one doesn't want to believe that, and for the religious reasons, Allah's name is used to teach English, ancient algebraic consciousness, what I call it. Value A. Value, in other words, the sciences were revealed to be taught actively as one body, not to separate tasks, to separate industries, but to the common industry of evolution, bottom up, where it needs it most. Because the ancients understood that we are a value nature system that is alpha body diffuses energy, freeing God. Freedom. We want independence with freedom. Because God's nature wants to stay unchanging. But we have value nature systems, nations, that were tricked and hurt and locked in to have the terror reactions. So interscience only let sabotage education since ancient times. It just reminds. The sciences were criminally re-engineered. So, alpha body's consciousness diffuses energy, freeing God. High, I juxtapose kind, longing, mother's neutral. Omega people's question raises seed telling you. Then we come to the last five pillars. Victory's wall extinguishes. Why? Zenith. Because we only have control of our nature now. We only have semi memory because this is not our nature. We are just in addition to it as what? Adhere to its nature, its wanted nature, the only space nature, positive identity. That's why we have nature adhere to consciousness. So we want to share the truth with each other, but not in relationship to the value nature system we've only been realized, not by accident. This is with colonization's terror database relationships. Before we had computers, they had databases, not just measuring how many oxen people had with terror laws like slavery. And with those laws to have it perpetually blamed on other lies and delusions. Her evidence fabrication natures for a breaching method, having the populations of nations be their own breaching nature army stewards. Self-defending roles with it, not realizing, not understanding, not by accident. American history blamed as a war because we only had legal natures incapable of describing the nature of the extortion of the kings and queens of Europe and of the nations that colonized over here. England from north down to below France, but north down to Georgia. And then below that was like Spain. But they were all geopolitical campuses, criminally re-engineered ancient, actual internation sciences. The world was taken, denatured through the education. including the people who were the terror stewards of these databases. They were foreign. So the word foreigner is going to come up in this conversation, but we're talking about the same enemy because it's forced over there too. That's why terror people over here with sick laws like that. Then they have laws like witch trials. That was demonstrably reflective of the nature of the extortion demonstrably existing at the time of each branch of government distinctly in relationship to a terror method bias. James Madison's thinking is his counter is a phenomenon. We don't have time not to just deal with him. That's the most important and critical part of American history. Not letting that understood, glorifying the other founders. And we're not. If that's why you don't go into glorifications, and then you go to debates like that, you protract time gone. Putting physics of emotions to consider physics. This is the presence of it. This is what the rainbow is in the beginning of the Old Testament as a tool for, to have this conversation. Because pseudo-educated people put physics before metaphysics, before understanding, with convictions, physical delusions, in other words, with emotions, not generated by understanding itself, not always in positive. The same nature that is unchanging overall, it wants to stay that here. That's why the earth has no criminal persuasions but humanity, especially criminally legalized criminal persuasions, and especially criminal exploitations of that, and especially criminal exploitations, forcing criminal exploitations of that, which is what we have. And we have predatory, when people want to connect the facts, we have media defending only surface value treatments and with expert leans. The same experts that are have facilitated through time standardized interstate motivations to perpetuate live progressions of international breaching needs and live progressions juxtaposed to other crime needs to tell the same lies and maintain the same illusion. Live progressions blamed on different causes. That's why we had the standardized. I watched Lisa Ling on, I believe, CNN. She does a report on how they have the problems with the heroin right at the age group right side of campuses and right after high school. Phenomena between recorded known federal criminal ties. We have these things known, but we have agencies demonstrably. They have all these kind of crime progressions standardized. So their time is into little pieces in this, and they're missing. No one's focusing on the whole thing, and the people who are focusing on the whole thing, for example, because we have, all the unions, they have international investments with the money and stuff like that, and everyone's tied and invested to these business things. We were brought to this the same way, by terror at our base, not with one nation to blame, because it was an internation science. It was what had that before that. This is what religions, when you put them with, when you remove what is not true always, you see they're talking about the criminal re-engineering of ancient revelations. And they're talking about a archetypal criminal enterprise. And I'm not a lawyer, but they're talking about how a criminal enterprise is forced. In other words, there is only one positive, unchanging. And when we're in its range, its nature, when we are that positive, we have a positive that's greater than us, that connects still as our nature, not just temporary wise, when we are lasting wise. In other words, always. Then that forces positive value nature progressions. Just like we can't see the consciousness here forces means to it here that we can't see. And we have a method to the evidence fabrication, and with motivations that we don't understand, with people, and with treatments of facts, and with treatment especially of topics, especially in relationship to treatments of emotions and sensibilities, with delusions already juxtaposed, only let realize to standardized American histories. One's predatory to what needs to be understood about the nature of the extortion of the free speech of James Madison. And with Connecticut, before we were a country, it was a colony involved with slavery, and involved with slavery after we were a country too. And Connecticut is the capital of, Hartford is the capital of Connecticut, between New York and Boston. So we have to get to, in other words, and then the police there's the police forms. They're not supposed to talk about themselves. We have to use what we know ourselves. We have to use correlation to speak about this. Understand this. In other words, how they forced criminal terror on the Indians first, because truth is a sequence nature. But no one remembers it accurately, not by accident, because they were with a plan, not, in other words, they had the education control for this. And for our reactions and to facts treatments and the sensibilities, to have that control. In other words, this breaching method all nations fell to. Not, and knowing we will only be able to blame it on negative value nature progressions of other nations being wrong, because it's really how we're all forcing it ourselves, because we're all forced to shared policing, unchallenged, unmentioned, of the same shared forced markets positions, denaturing the landscape to force it. It's one of the most important reasons too, besides the obvious, why we have to understand why Native American right first, not per what people, everyone's opinions fail to describe the law properly, because everyone playing the business, and there's no place for a voice still, even with computers. It's even, in other words, there are proofs even that these shooting progressions are in relationship to the already standardized kill natures, hurt conviction natures to all areas. And what's been using that for evidence fabrication, cover-up methods, and juxtaposition methods to other needs to lie for the same things. But what's been having to adapt because of the nature of the internet. Confessions were made to me about this, recorded and from different people in relationship to from two different people in Wethersfield regarding more people like that, with police too, using the internet for evidence fabrication cover-ups with other police forms, per recorded proofs, but and per threats, which have to be addressed first, because they threaten women in my family. Have been messaging sick threats, and other women in the area. So, what I'm talking here, unchanging positive is one nature of positive. Physical is one nature of value. Unchanging value is Allah. If you don't want to call it Allah, you're in another religion. Demonstrably, the most plausible thing that all religions are trying to say is that there's only one nature of positive that is unchanging and is actively in demonstration to us. And we lost all the revelations that humanity understood because they didn't have criminal persuasions, especially criminally legalized persuasions running top down. It was top down trying to be overall because they had learned. They had revealed too because they've been doing that. Then you take away illusions. The ancients would say, look, the ancients would see right away that their revelations had been criminally re-engineered. They built top-down infrastructure purposely to know the negative value nature progressions caused by it and by the tactically denatured landscape, that they would be they wouldn't be not being understood. They'd be blamed on lies and delusions, measured as evidence fabrication natures, as reaction natures, as indifferences, then invested further, cultivated further into an engineering of indifferences that perpetuated an perpetual expert lean, breached, only let trained, realize trained, hurt conviction natures, inexpert reliances upon prisons, psychopath prisons, leaderships, and juxtapositions with their criminals. Even though, and that neither of them understand. They just understand their own needs to cover up all kind of juxtaposed lie progressions with all kind of juxtaposed crimes of a nature, of a method to perpetually have what was here before all nations that took our sciences, internation, per the methods, having us not figure out, have it stay blamed on other things. It's how it's juxtaposed with the branches, families, before they grow up, without them victim, not realizing, because it's all areas. Whatever you want to go into is already measured out. In relationship to what no one understands, which are means and means to evidence fabrication that no one's looking at, because this isn't like a monetary target. These are human nature targets. These are human nature sabotage, murder and exploitation perpetually system. Keep us. That's why we lost more than all these wars. The war on terror, the war on poverty is the most important one. And no one understands it. Because everyone still, not only does everyone not understand it, play these punk games with emotions. In other words, with who can act the best, like carrying about. What it's about is if you don't teach what the terror laws were, then there is still interest for people to make hurt, to keep them blamed on other illusions. There were recorded proofs that Facebook police, Facebook is worried about themselves. Now, I'm not knocking Facebook. They're great. I'm saying the policing of it is predatory. Because they're relying, that's expertly. In other words, the way it's set up too is to insidious clever. They have this used for evidence fabrication, lie progression methods, even tied to the youngest ages, with the threats they made, and then the threats not to say anything because of how it's juxtaposed to interbranch families. They threatened me first, not just the guy with the court with the rape threats on Facebook messaging and posts, and with all kinds of federal crime. No one's going to have time to listen to it. That's why I need to ask for thinking paper. You know what they do? They make so many crimes. They have all many crimes confessed with all the people that they had tied to lie progressions, with systematic evidence fabrications through time, systematic witness fabrications through time, interbranch, and how and why. It's just mine. That's why we have the military's exploited topic. These politicians are retreat natures from the second they take the office, because we lost to what was entrenched here. With the most important thing, with education, not for the reason that everyone used that term, towards business, all the narratives about power and all that stuff. All that does, that's just two evidence fabrication natures, breaching nature, hurt conviction natures, indifference natures, to what stayed. entrenched that James Madison wants to reveal with Marguerite and Madison. But it's too deep in everyone's souls, not by accident. It was a method to keep everyone self-defending lies and delusions with facts treatments, and without only realized that they're trained. As with this whole election, how could you know what to vote for? Unless you go, you read, it's just it's all business run. One thing Hillary Clinton though is right with Obama, with the health care, because this is right with the evil colonization roots. We're right with the health care tied to the courts, with the psychology too. One way reports, recorded proofs they've been putting people. They've been forcing people into hospitals in situations where there's verbal arguments that they set up. In other words, when people they start making pressure on people, when they get people in areas where the police have roles with the drugs and live progressions in relationship to different investigations and with different officers and with different agencies, and then they have their own agencies trying to look at that. For recorded proofs. I'm not even, in my town, there's different people that work for different agencies, and their family members. They have them involved with interbranch families with a pattern of evidence fabrications connected to the threats they've been making against my family, and slanders too, because, and what it's tied to is because it was all people that were used for life progressions in the past. Like there's we'll get into it, because then they want you to use their names too, because if you try to report it, then it sounds like you have ties to them. In other words, they affect it. Anyways, three natures of value. There's unchanging positive Allah. There's physical value, and there's metaphysical value, which is consciousness. We only have this is more probably what the ancient pantheism of the one positive and demonstration to every nation. Wasn't God. God is value G, which is only our conception for correlation, for protracted correlation, which is ratiocination, which is taking away what it can't be, and revealing what could be overall, unchanging ways. And there are proofs that the Old Testament is with methods with the Quran to preserve English with algebra. English is revealed to teach algebraic consciousness, I call it. And you see the video I did on Excalibur, pulled from the rock. And see the video I did on the three natures of zero. And this is because of the three natures of value. In its own nature, which is in three positions. Before, with matter, and progressively after it. There's two forever natures. There's the forever nature, and there's active nature, that's temporary value, temporary lasting, and then there's lasting. Yin yang. There are proofs that yin yang is not about, they're the ancients, I would say, internation science, Etruscan, Roman, America, the republic for which we stand. They would say, like, internation with Asian guys and women would say yin yang is not black, white, positive, negative. And with the two dots, this is to teach about the positive, what polarity nature looks like. In other words, there's the positive and the negative on a battery. But the ancients would call this not positive and negative, we'll call it alpha and omega. And then the body of the value they build together, the stream of energy, electrons coming through the wire or through the shock or whatever. The nature of both polarities, the alpha and the omega, are in that. And if it's positive or negative value nature, depends if it's in the range that is still in and as the nature of radical, unchanging positive, which is radical. Why? Because when our nature is negative value nature, the radical of unchanging positive is not in our nature, but it stays in demonstration to us. Because the loss of it demonstrates negative value nature progressions. And the existence of it, unchanging positive, which these value nature systems have nothing to do with, but per needed reactions, charity. We have to lean on charities. That's why Joe Biden's on the thing. I understand that. I'm saying, we should be there for that. In other words, science failed. Everyone's, what neighborhood I come from is the Constitution's cause. What neighborhood I come from is the one that James Madison had to counter-extort the other people. You know what I'm saying? I'm totally for you guys. But there's too many, you make a business for it. You could do that. Just make a cartoon. There's trillions there, and there's reasons for it because there's poverty. And that's not just poverty. There's losses in the American Revolution. And there's predatory incompetence with the educational concepts and with the concepts of thinking and understanding and our value and our poor psychology and the healthcare with these roads, with these schools. You fools. That's the problem. These are the same people orchestrating the hate and saying, oh, blame those people. There are people who never had an unsabotaged area in campus education. They're making like a predatory daycare. That's what's the problem with the guns. It's got nothing to do with the guns, because no one can think that killing the guys impose. And lean on expertise. Just suppose. Real facts, real fast. When I've realized the problems with 20 a day, something soldiers dying, all that. Yallah. A'udhu billah, bismillah. A'udhu billah, bismillah. Alhamdulillah. So it's every science, every religion, too. It's just captive because with the sciences, they're with industries as the sciences that they're demonstrably implying the corruption of with guys, all people, all these lies. We failed, we lost. We didn't lose a war in revolution. We lost the understanding and the agenda of the needs to counter logistical impositions that Madison wanted us to understand with counter extortion, using George Washington and other phenomena is the plural.